in conversation with Stephen Radich. Stephen Radich here from New Zealand, Kiwi boyo, Catholic interest, retired high school teacher, father of two sons with three grandchildren currently residing on Earth, brain in decline, so may not be able to produce much more of interest. Published four times, current effort out of Austin Macauley in London is a sci-fi work entitled Letters from Another Galaxy. Apart from waiting for the mail, his current interests include gardening, fishing, cooking, being a grandfather, arguing about the behaviour or otherwise of subatomic particles, and dreaming that his new book might yet bring him much deserved wealth and fame. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today, Stephen Radich. How are you doing, Stephen?
I'm doing very well, thank you. For this interview.
Yeah, it's lovely to have you on the show today, knowing that it's morning in your side of the world and it's evening in my own side of the world, being 12 hours apart. It's amazing,
Yes, I think so. Very science fiction-ish.
And time travel in nature.
Yes, time traveling and we're and the data is having to travel between you and me and backwards and forwards, and there's a slight lag. So you can imagine if we were communicating between each other on the moon, there would be a bigger lag.
And hilariously you are ahead of me, and I'm in the past, you're in the future. Imagine.
Yes, yes.
Well, it's amazing, really. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm kind of excited, really.
Once okay, well, there was a goon show and they had an argument about who would have their birthday first. And they got in an aeroplane and one stood at the front and one stood at the back. And the one at the front crossed the time zone first. So he crossed one of those time zones that people make up for the planet.
Wow.
So he got his birthday first.
That's amazing. Thank you for that short illustration. Now, Stephen, let's go into your book. Could you tell us about your book, Letters from Another Galaxy? And I'd love to ask you, what inspired the making of Letters from Another Galaxy? And what were you trying to achieve when you wrote this particular book?
Well, in my part of the world, it's probably the same in yours. There are arguments, debates in public about the impact of colonization on different communities. And I'm sure that would be an argument that's fresh in your country too. And I was interested, I've been a student of colonization since my university days. Wow. It means I've been interested in it. And I studied it to some extent. And I used to think it was just something that white people did to black people. But I've since realized, we humans, we all do it to each other. We conquer and rape and pillage. And, we aren't very kind to our neighbors sometimes. We try and take over and it's not always pleasant. So I was interested in just an unemotional, objective look at colonization and happening to advanced high-tech civilizations on Earth, not humans doing it to humans, but aliens, even more advanced technologies from outer space, attempting to colonize the countries like China and the US, high-tech civilizations on Earth. And the other aspect I was interested in was that usually when you get a sci-fi story and the way aliens are presented, they're usually presented as really kind of almost evil things that they just want to kill humans. They want to destroy the planet, and we can't even see them, or they're just blobs of some kind with legs, and we don't understand. So, as well as the colonization story I wanted to tell, I wanted to have aliens that were more relatable, that we could connect with, and communicate with. That doesn't necessarily mean that everything they're doing to us is nice. They are raping and pillaging too, like any colonizers.
Absolutely.
But they're doing it because for their own reason. They're not doing it just because they want to be nasty. They're doing it because they want space for their species, and they want to get rid of the competition. They're not just random killers.
Wow. It's quite amazing to know, really. And I love your short description of of how letters from another galaxy came to be. And if you have a copy there, I'd love you to show it to the camera just so we can see what it looks like. Beautiful cover, even. Letters from another galaxy. Beautiful.
See these, can you see this little blue line
Yeah,
here?
I see, yeah.
Okay, there was a TV show called Travelers, and you may or may not have heard of it, but it often has these little data flows showing communication from one time to another time between these people from different time zones, and it has little sort of digital bits flowing through the film, and I like that. So I took that idea and tried to put it here to show the idea of data being traveling through space.
Amazing. I love the sound of that. And I've come to think of it. I've come to realize that, every book, every book cover has a story behind it. It's of recent I got to start asking authors, can you tell us a bit about how you come about the cover, how you come about the title, how you come about the illustration? Because I've come to realize that every book cover has a message in the cover that are very dear to the author, to the writer themselves. So thank you for the short illustration. And now I'd love to ask you to Stephen, how's growing up in New Zealand influenced your writing? Would you like to talk about that?
Yes. I have wondered about this question because when you live in your own skin, much as you do live in your world, you're not conscious of how it colors your perception of life. And I've thought about it. And I grew up as a child. I was born on a New Zealand dairy farm, and as a kid, as I grew up, I could explore wide open spaces with no wild animals that were predators around. So I could walk out from the house, through the garden, and down the hill into some wild bush, native bush. Or I would get down even further. I would find the ocean because we had the sea around part of our farm. So I always had wide open spaces to explore. The other thing I think might have informed, and I suspect that this might show in my novel, that I might show an appreciation of nature and space and the natural world. And the other thing is I grew up with dogs and cats and cows and sheep and horses and poultry. And as a little kid, I was chased by wild geese once. I was apparently a 2-year-old. And my mother said I came running home with this, a swan, big black swan chasing me. And I was a little toddler. And there's another story. We farmed pigs, and I was very comfortable with animals. And there was a mother pig, a sow, big one, lying on her side, feeding her baby piglets. And I went down to visit, and I had an apple in my hand. And this mother sow got up, and she took the apple from me because she wanted to eat it. And my mother said, I growled at the pig. I was just a little boy, 2-year-old boy, growled at the pig and took the apple out from her mouth and said, no, it's fine. And the pig didn't. The pig respected me, and understood I was the baby, like her babies.
Wow.
So I like the way I'm interested in the behaviour of animals, and that animals are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. And I have used I watch the shows about your continent, about especially love the stories, the documentaries about the
Oh,
elephants and lions, and I've used um, the standard animal behaviour, the aggressive, competitive males that wipe out the competition and sometimes
wow.
kill the babies of other males, so they can make the female fertile. I use that as my model for how aliens might behave.
Wow, this is amazing. And I love your stories in there. I love the story about your shy dude. I love the one you mentioned about, how you're growing up in New Zealand, influencing writing. Sounds quite lovely and quite captivating to me, really. So thank you for sharing. Much appreciated.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, Stephen, for readers who haven't read Letters from Another Galaxy yet, and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect in terms of themes picking up the book?
Well, as I've mentioned already, colonization it's a story of colonization of
Oh,
Earth by um, pardon me, advanced toolmakers from on the way out in the Milky Way. So
oh,
they discover us and then they try to colonize us. So it's a
oh,
story of them of their colonized attempts, and because there are lots of different things that happen in the colonization process. I mean,
mm,
some of it's brutal, some of it's just accidental. Um, one of the issues, like for example, in my country,
yeah,
while there are arguments between the indigenous Maori people about colonization,
yeah,
um, the thing is, we like each other,
mm,
and I think that's why we actually got on well. Is we still get on well. We're friends. Um, Men of different races fall in love and have babies. We have families, and so that's one of my themes. Is really uh, about discovering that these differences are not as deep as we think, even
mm,
between us and animals, between us and us, different ethnicities of humans. So in my novel, I have these zealots who are trying to colonize China,
wow,
and they are missionaries. They have a religion to teach. And see, that's one of the themes of colonization. The religious people come in first, the missionaries come and they convert the
mm,
local people and they pacify them. so, so that when the land grabbers come in and the miners and the exploiters come in, that they've got a
wow,
more Christian sort of easier to manage. So I have
mm,
these zealots uh, trying to colonize China and convert them all to their religion. And we have
mm,
an event in which the Chinese try to entertain these aliens with some puppet theater and some Chinese opera, a little show. And the zealots, the aliens, don't fully understand the tradition, and they jump on stage and join in and start
mm,
to play part. And initially, there's a moment of awkwardness
oh,
because what's going on here? But then everybody relaxes into it, and we end up producing kind of a new sort of almost hybrid theatre. Like it's a bit like that's between aliens and humans, and they like
wow,
each. They discover how much they have in common, and they
wow.
like each other. They're both surprised to find they like each other and get on so well.
Wow. Wow, I love your take on this really, and I love hearing about the themes encapsulated in, letters from another galaxy. Sounds quite great to me. So thank you for sharing. I love the sound of it, and I can go on and on. Your story sounds interesting to me, really.
Well, I'm glad it sounds interesting to you. I'm just hoping it sounds interesting to a lot of people.
Yeah, it will. Now, I'd like to ask you, Stephen, what makes your book stand out in the BC marketplace? Would you like to talk about that?
Well, I like to think that it's my unique take on aliens.
Oh, wow.
that they're relatable. Um,
Oh.
it doesn't necessarily mean they're kind and or compassionate. They do what they need to do to meet their interests. They all have an agenda. They didn't come here just to be nice to humans, but
Mm.
some of them are nice to us because that enables them to achieve their goals. I mean, there is one species that their interest is scientific, so they are collecting human species and
Mm.
animals, take them back, humans, races and ethnicities and religions, and they take samples back to their own planet to put in their museums and things like that. So that's a cultural a theme of colonization that I'm sure you're also familiar with. And in my country, and I suspect in yours, there are people who are trying to reclaim artifacts that were taken by the colonizing powers and put in like the British Museum and things like that, and trying to say, well, we want them back. We never gave them to you. You stole them from us. So
Mm.
that's so I had those are one of the ideas that I explore in my novel.
Oh, this is amazing, really. This is so amazing. I so much love your answer to this question, Stephen. It sounds quite pulling, interesting, and quite educative as well to me. So thank you for sharing. At least we get to know more about healing. It's a lovely thing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like. I mean, these themes are because probably writers write about what they know in a sense,
absolutely.
and and one of the greatest pleasures in my life, without a
Mm.
doubt, has been hanging out with people from other cultures and other religions and other races and things. I love it, and
Wow.
I find it enriching. I find it enriching. Some people don't. I think some people find other races and cultures scary, and they want to kill each other because they are scared of each other or they don't understand. But for me, I just enjoy it, and I find
Wow.
it enriching. And I love the fact that we have so much in common, and that's why I tried to have my aliens relatable, so that
Oh,
that they're not, they might be trying to kill us off, but it's not because they're evil. They're doing it because they want the space or they want the food.
yeah.
They're not doing it because they just want to kill humans for the sake of killing.
Absolutely. Well, I love your take on this, really. And now let's talk about how you get the inspirations and ideas to write your book. And which is one of the reasons why I'm always fascinated and surprised about our writers, especially novelists like yourself, craft long sentences, bring paragraph together, make sentences, make pages, pages making chapters, chapters making a huge, interesting, beautiful novel with a great story in it. This always leave me thinking about how exactly did they get the ideas to write this book? Where did it how can someone just sit down, compile all of these things together, and eventually makes a great, amazing, worthy book? Now I'd like to ask you, as far as writing is concerned, how do you get your inspirations and ideas? Where did they come from?
Well, are you familiar with a rock musician called Sting?
But quite a lot of people I
Well,
don't know, imagine.
that's all right. He makes some beautiful music. He used to have a band called the Police,
Oh,
and people interview him and ask him where does he get his songs from,
hmm,
and he says he doesn't know.
wow,
And so I guess I'm saying, well, it's I don't know where these come from. Uh,
wow,
they just turn up
wow,
uh, in the writing of a famous English author called William Shakespeare. He
hmm,
talked about it as being a muse, MUSE, that the
yes,
writer's muse.
yeah,
It's like a person in the back of you that tells you these stories, and you are just a conduit. You turn
hmm,
on and the story comes out.
hmm,
And I think it's a parallel to the way jazz musicians play music from their
hmm,
imagination. They're not sitting there looking at music notes generally. It's just coming to them, and
hmm,
they just play it. It's like it turn on a tap. So that, for me, that's where the ideas come from. They
wow.
just they were informed by who you are and your education, you might say,
Mm.
and values. But
Wow.
the ideas. So when I'm writing a story, some writers have writer's block, but I don't have ever had writer's block
Mm.
because I don't do a lot of writing, I suppose, but I write because it's like I have to. It's like a compulsion. It's like the
Mm.
story having to cut. It's saying, tell the story. There's a story in my head saying, share it with people. It's not me saying,
Yeah.
oh, let's see if there's a story there. It's a story is knocking, saying, I want to be told.
Yeah, I can relate to this actually. Sometimes it's like a voice saying in your head, "Write me, write me, write me, write me, write me." You be like, "Please hold on a while, hold on a while. I need to take some bread. I'm gonna write you, but I need to know how
Yes,
exactly to do
yes.
that." you know, Because I get
When
this
I'm in
thing
the
screaming in my head. Peter, write me, write me, write me, write me. I'm like, oh my god, there's so many voices. Oh my god.
Yes, and it's not always pleasant having all this imagination in your head. It's
Yeah.
You have to express it.
Mm.
Um, and sometimes, for example, if my wife wants to communicate with me sometimes, and I'm in the midst of writing, it's a total waste of time. I'm on another. I'm somewhere else.
My goodness, that's funny. That's funny, Stevie. Wow, that's amazing. And I think that's why some people kind of consider writing as a spiritual journey because eventually, if
Yes,
you ask them, how do you go about this? They'll be like, I don't know. It just came to me, like something
yes,
speaking to my head. And I picked my
yes,
pen and I started writing. I don't know how sometimes even when I go back to the works that I've written, I'll be like, how did you do it? It's surprising
yes,
to
yes,
you, even as a
yes,
writer. So
yes.
it's
And when you share this information with other people, they look at you and go, "He's crazy," because they think you're crazy. And I think maybe in a way writers are a bit crazy. That's why they write. You know,
Oh my goodness. You make me laugh so hard. That's amazing, really. And that's true. That's one of the fun things about writing. Yeah, like, I agree with you. Writers are a bit crazy, really, because it's not a funny thing to do. Yeah. Oh, wow, this is so funny. I love this. I can go on and on. This is so beautiful. You're so fun to speak with, Stephen.
oh, thank you. Well, I'm enjoying the conversation, and thank
Absolutely.
you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Yeah, my pleasure as well. Now, I'd also like to ask you, Stephen, apart from letters from another galaxy, do you have any other works you've authored or currently working on? Also, how do you handle criticism as a writer?
Well, I have another a murder mystery that's on. You can buy from Amazon called The Water Treatment.
Oh, interesting.
I have a book. I have an interest in fishing and boating in the sea. It's probably
Oh,
my passion, the ocean. I love the ocean, and I love anything to do with the ocean: swimming, surfing, diving, sailing, whatever. So I have about 10 or 15 years ago. I wrote a book called A Guide to Fishing and Diving in the particular part of our country,
oh,
and that's another book that I've written. And I used to write kids stories,
oh,
um, and I'm probably at the moment trying to get one of those stories into a form that can be sold online.
wow.
So I'm working on that, and I'm mainly working. Like I've got a sequel to the science fiction novel, partly
Mm,
written, but I'm not going to write it unless I get some good sales from the one I've written,
mm,
because I'm just sort of making a decision just to leave it, and
absolutely.
not because writing is not always pleasant. It's almost like a chore.
Yeah,
It's you feel like there are moments when you're writing where it can be utterly joyful and you get caught up in the lives of the characters,
absolutely.
but it's also lonesome, and you're cut off from friends and people, and you get fat from sitting on your bum all day and not doing much else. So yeah, it's a lonely um, uh, skill, you might say.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I agree with you on that. That's amazing. Thank you for sharing. Now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Are there any challenges you've encountered in the process of writing this book and also ever since it got published?
Well, to put this succinctly,
Yeah,
um, but first of all, the context in which we both exist and the way we are communicating now
yeah,
um, is illustrative of the fact that our old styles of communication, paper media, newspapers,
mm,
even radio and television,
yeah,
are all undergoing huge changes. The
absolutely.
way people communicate, the way you and I get our news and information.
Mm,
So so a lot of publishing companies are broke, have closed down. So I guess I'm trying to say is that it's very difficult to get published. If
yeah,
you look, it's very difficult, and I guess there's no alternative but hard, perseverance and persevere, keep going, keep going, keep going.
yeah,
I mean, the best advice I can probably offer
yeah,
uh, to another writer is if you can afford it, get your once you've got your work finished,
yeah.
if you can pay for a professional editor to go through it,
Mm,
and then you've got the best chance that your work is in the best possible condition when you present it to prospective
absolutely.
publishers.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for your advice. And I like the fact that you mentioned that. That's quite helpful. And I'm hoping that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Now, Stephen, is there anything you love the viewers to know about your book? And, we're kind of rounding up currently. But is there anything you love to share with the viewers about your books that we did not mention in this interview? I'd love the viewers to know.
Well, I do deliberately, perhaps, stand on people's toes. I shoot down sacred cows, you might say. So some of my work is quite challenging. Some of the
Oh,
things that happen can be quite brutal and offensive and scary and
wow.
so there's some of that. But I'd like to think that it's a bit like there's a famous jazz musician called John Coltrane. He played a saxophone, and
Mm,
he's worth remembering too. And he made a record called Meditation. And
wow.
when you listen to this record, it starts off it's total chaos, and
Wow.
it's really quite, but it ends up in a very beautiful, calm, serene place. So
Wow.
I would like to think my novel is a bit like that. That
Wow.
hopefully that people get through the challenging narrative, the things that are happening to humans that are and aliens and things that aren't we don't find pleasant. I would
Mm,
like to think that at the end, um, people find the story uplifting and feel affirmed as humans, that it's worth, being a human is not such a bad thing. We aren't
mm.
just, yes, I want it to end up positively. I want people to
Oh,
feel good about themselves.
yeah. Wow. I love your take on this and I love your answers really. And I love, the fact that you mentioned and share this. Sounds quite lovely to me. And now, in case we have some interested viewers who are currently watching this interview and would love to get a copy of your book, on what platform is it available on for purchase?
Well, it's available on from the publisher's website called Austin Macauley, and
Oh.
it's available on Amazon. But my advice to people is it's available on a lot of sites, on bookshops throughout the world,
Mm,
online. So my suggestion is people Google the title or Google the name of the author, Stephen Radich, or the title Letters from Another Galaxy, and see where they can get the best deal. So some shops, some have got discount prices and some don't. So see where you can get the best deal.
That's great. And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Stephen Radish book directly on Amazon, on Austin Macauley's website, and also on other platform. So thank you so much, Stephen, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's quite a pleasure having this conversation with you.
Good on you. We'll have to do it
Yeah,
again. I'll write another book so we can have another interview.
absolutely. That's quite amazing, really.
You could interview me about one of my other books one day.
That would be great. I'd
Okay.
love to do that. This is